So hey everybody, and welcome to the Heroin Chronicles. And today's story is about one of the craziest treatment centres I ever ended up in, and there have been quite a few. Um, this place, absolutely bizarre. This is about the pig farm. So about 8 years ago, going back about 8, 9 years ago, in a really desperate situation, fully addicted, strung out, depressed, despondent. I felt like giving up. I was in an awful, desperate situation, and I couldn't get into therapy or to detox. I'd been in several times, too many different places. Had a bad name for kind of not completing it, or for completing it and going back using, which is just as bad. And it seemed like I was the lost cause. Nobody wanted to give me a treatment place. So I had heard through a friend of mine in NA that there was an older guy named Mick, an old farmer, and he was an AA guy. That's an Alcoholics Anonymous. But there were some of the NA lads in Narcotics Anonymous that would go to AA meetings also because they might have a double problem. But one lad in particular, David, who was attending both NA and AA, had come to know this other guy in AA, Mick. He was an old farmer. And Mick had got clean off the drink late in life, in his 60s, and had about 10 years sobriety behind him. And he was a very enthusiastic man, and he had dreams of opening a treatment centre. Now, he'd been left a house, Mick, this old farmer man, he'd been left a house by an old aunt of his. And he was 70. This woman must have been 90 plus. But she died and left him this old pig farm. And he'd inherited this and wanted to open a treatment centre in it. So that's all we'd heard. We didn't know any more than that. But our friend David, there was about 4 of us, I should mention. There was Jody, Danny, my brother, myself, and another guy, John. And now John didn't come down with us. We met John down there, but we knew him through other people, so it was like very familiar, the 4 of us. We were the first people for this new treatment centre that was to be opening down near about 15, 20 miles outside Athlone in the middle of Ireland. And that's all we knew, very vague. New treatment centre, we'd be the first people down there. We knew they were understaffed and just opening the place, so we knew it was going to be a bit rough and ready. That's what we were told to expect. But I was desperate, my brother was desperate, and Jody was desperate, and we just wanted to get in somewhere. And we'd heard about this place, there was no waiting list. We could go down straight away at the weekend if we were ready. So come the weekend, we were ready. And we, as we always did, we'd bought a little bit of gear to bring down something just to, for the first night to get through that. And then we'd give this detox a real go. So David picked up Jody. I picked up Danny and myself. Jody made his own way down, that's right. In his, Jody I think had borrowed his father's car, and he made his way down. And the other guy, John, I think Mick the farmer brought him down. But anyway, we all arrived within a day of each other and met down there. And as I said, because I knew Jody and I indirectly knew John, I kind of felt at home with these 2 guys. And I had my brother with me as well. But we were all coming off hard drugs, heroin, crack, all of that. And some of the lads were coming off benzos. So there were serious withdrawals to be gone through. And this place had no medication. This was like, you did this KoldTurkey. I'd done that before. I was prepared for it. And like I said, we did bring down something just for the first night to ease into the place, which is kind of a very normal thing done in addiction. But we're driving down there and we're nearing the place. He said it's about 10 minutes from here, lads, and we're in the middle of nowhere and it's raining and overcast and windy, and we're sitting in the back of the car, a little bit edgy and apprehensive, myself and my brother. And David, the guy who knew Mick, and who David was going to come down and work there as a sort of project worker in the house, because he was stable and clean and doing very well, and he was to sort of be like a fill-in for a counsellor, since they didn't actually have a counsellor down there yet. And man, we didn't know what to expect, because it's just as well, because when we got there, if we'd have known what we were coming down to, we may never have come down in the first place. The car drove around a windy country road and appeared then in this sort of a valley, of what we could only call a dip in the land. And down in the middle of this dip, in the clearing of all the bushes and trees and that, you could see this little house in the distance, this grey 2-storey house, very drab and isolated looking. And on this little plot of scrubbish land, where you could see there were some stables or pens or something in the background. So we drove up to this old little rundown country house, got out of the car, went in through the open front door and walked in, and there was Mick sitting in the chair beside the fire, stoking up a little stove he had. He had a blazing fire going, made a cup of tea on the stove, and he welcomed us into the house. Brought us up, showed us our rooms, and it was only a 4-bedroom house, I think, and there was 2 beds in one room. There was me and the brother, and Jody and John took the other room. And then there was another gentleman down there who was in his late 60s. I can't remember his name, but we'll call him Tom for the sake of, I'll give him a name. So Tom was an alcoholic and we were 4 drug addicts, and all meeting for the first time, all meeting Tom for the first time. And so he looked at us with great suspicion, you know, here's these 4 Dublin drug addicts, and he was just a hard working drinking man, and he didn't know how to take us, nor we him at the time. Maybe we were a bit cliquish because we were whispering among each other, trying to sort out the last little bit of stuff we had, if we could share it with each other and have a smoke as soon as Mick got offside, which he did, because Mick didn't stay in the treatment centre at night, hence the need for David to come down and be kind of our guardian, as it were. So basically we come into this house, this run down old house. It had no structure whatsoever. There was no okay, at this time we get up, at this time we do breakfast, then we'll have a meet. There was none of that. It was just there's your rooms, make yourselves comfortable. He was aware we had to go through withdrawals, but I don't think Mick had ever experienced heroin addicts going through withdrawals before. He'd seen fellas coming off drink, but it's not quite the same, because Mick had plans that as we would have a couple of days in bed with not much to do, just to sort of get our strength back and to stay off the drugs, and then a couple of days into it he was hoping we'd start to paint up the place and decorate it and help him build it into the vision of this treatment centre that he had. And of course we got down there, we'd had a little smoke when he went down to the local store to get some, which was about 5 miles away, to get some briquettes and then some other things that we're going to need in the house. We all ran up to the room, leaving Tom in the chair, not knowing what was going on, because we all disappeared as soon as Mick left. Davey, the guy that's supposed to be looking after us, he was out picking up wood, bits of sticks and wood and that, to, you know, to keep the fire going till Mick got back with the briquettes. So we saw a little bit of time without any guardian, and the 4 of us, all in our 40s, I might add, 30s and 40s, we ran upstairs like school kids, got someone to keep sketch at the door, and we smoked the last of the heroin. So we didn't get too stoned, we were all so mad addicted that we had such high tolerance, but it would just kept us a little euphoric a little longer. So we came down, and Mick came back with the briquettes, and we started to, they had a big stew on the pot, so we all sat down and had a meal, and we were all feeling good because we'd had our smoke. We're saying, yeah, we can paint this and we'll do this, and so Mick was like ecstatic, thinking he had a great team of lads ready to get stuck into the hard work as soon as we all felt a little bit better. Oh, was good. Mick was going away for the weekend. This was a Friday night, I think. And he would be back Monday morning. David was going to mind us, and he left. If we were feeling up to it, there was a few jobs around needed done. And I mean, you have to understand, you went out the back door of this house, and there was all these little pens where the pigs used to be. Of course, there was no pigs in there anymore, but there was an old donkey with a rope around its neck, and just hanging, and he just wandering around chewing grass and stuff and straw. And nobody seemed to know who owned the donkey, if he was part of our house or had he strayed onto the land. There was just nobody explained it to us. There was just a donkey in the back. So that was grand. The funny story about that, Nick goes off for the weekend, and I remember waking up the next morning. I got up to use the bathroom. It was an old porcelain like toilet with no seat on it, and a chain you pull. You know, this chain with the wooden handles. One of them things, you know. No toilet paper. He didn't think to get the fucking toilet paper, you know. Little things like that was just irking me. So anyway, I came down to have a cigarette downstairs. I went out, stood at the kitchen. To go out and stand at the kitchen door where we were supposed to smoke. And I came down the stairs and I walked from the living room into the kitchen. And the fucking donkey is just standing there in the kitchen. The back door was open, the donkey just walked in, and he was after chewing potatoes, carrots and veg that was left on top of the fridge in a bowl. He was after chewing, eating through the net packaging and munching half of the vegetables. So it just was a bizarre sight, and I'm waking up thinking, oh Jesus, where are we? The smell of the gaff, it was damp old, horrible old gaff. Came down the creaky stairs and there was a fucking donkey in the kitchen, you know. I thought, what the fuck? So I shooed the animal out of the kitchen, out of the annex. It was bizarre, like. And I standing at the door having a cigarette, and the withdrawals are kicking in, and I knew we'd nothing left. I don't think I went back to bed. One by one, the lads slowly came down, and we sat around. We're all sitting there with blankets, like looking at this. There was a little television in the corner of the room. You could get two stations on it, RTE1 and RTE2, and T and the G, the Gaelic. No, RTE1 and T and the G were the only stations that came in. The one was in Gaelic, you couldn't understand that, and the other one RTE. So we basically just had the telly on in the background, and it was rabbit's ears. Still had the fucking rabbit's ears. So the thing, we getting a really bad reception. So that was the only thing. We were all just staring at the telly, watching whatever was on that horrible daytime TV, and making cups of tea. We made tea after tea after tea, so it was running through us. And David got up and he'd sit there and he'd try to, encourage and chat to us and that, and no one wanted to talk. Everyone was just sitting there in the height of it, staring at the telly, all sitting there full of resentments for where we were. The place was fucking freezing. And Nick had left 2 bales of briquettes. Now briquettes are fuel we use over here in Ireland, and they come in a block. You get a 4 or 5 hours of a blazing fire out of them. And we've been left 2 for the weekend, and it's fucking freezing. It's in February or something. We're in the Midlands. It's cold, windy. There's a misty rain. There's perpetually misty rain down there, and grey overcast. It was miserable. It was bitter cold, And we sat in. We closed up the kitchen door. We even put blankets in around to stop the draft coming in, the gaps underneath it. And we tried to make the place warm. We'd gone through the bale of briquettes by that evening, the 2 bales of briquettes by that evening, because this stove just burned everything up. Heated the front room, so the 4 of us are huddling around it. And the poor old alcoholic guy didn't know what was going on, because he tried to converse and talk to us, but no one was really in the mood of having a conversation. We're all sitting there, and these were the same 4 lads yesterday. Do you want a cup of tea, man? As soon as we had a little smoke, we were like, do you want a cup of tea? What's your name? Tom, is it? Yeah, very nice, fair play. This is the... We were all, and this guy thought he'd be after meeting 4 best friends. The next day, no one would even look at the man or talk to him. Everyone's staring at the floor, miserable. And the sickness started to set in, and we're thinking, what the fuck are we doing here? See, we'd all handed up our social welfare to this guy. He was in receipt of our welfare. with the understanding he would buy 2 packets of tobacco every week, and he would supply the food. We didn't really need money. We were to pay for our keep. But being addicts, and we're all sitting around with a big critical eye on us, but it was easy to pick holes in this place because there was basically holes in the fucking roof. There was holes everywhere. And I could see this wasn't going to go well, because come 6, 7 o'clock, one of the boys just said, fuck this, you know, I'm getting there, I'm going to go and score. So Davey, who was keeping an eye on us, he was a very nice chap, and because we knew him and all, he was easy to manipulate. So the two of them, Jody said he wanted to go into Athlone to get some toiletries and things. He'd come ill prepared, and he wanted to pick up a few things in Athlone, and he wanted to get a few burgers on the way back for all of us, because the food, apart from the big stew we'd had the day before, all there was in the fridge was a big ham wrapped in plastic, a block of butter, and a 2 litre of milk, tea and sugar. That was about it, and a sliced pan. And the vegetables had been half eaten by the donkey. We didn't eat that night. There were no vegetables. There was potatoes, a few potatoes, and a big fuck off ham wrapped in like vacuum packed in plastic, and just sitting there in the fridge. Boom. And we just had a look at that. We were all hungry as well, you know. The fridge, just in this big manky ham, and Jesus, I remember we tried to make toast. The toaster wasn't working, so we were using the grill, doing the 2 sides of the toast, and I must have burned it 6 or 7 times. I had 4 pieces of bread, put it on the grill, and every time I burned it. So half of the pan went in. There was no food left in the cap. There was about 4 slices of bread that weren't burned to a cinder, and this big ham, and a few half-chewed vegetables left in the vegetable bowl, because the donkey ate them. So yeah, we decided to go and get burgers, and Dave agreed, because there was nothing really in the house to eat that night, and to make a proper meal with. So myself, my brother and Jody decided to go. It was about 6:37 in the evening. Decided to fly into Athlone to the burger bar. But we knew we were going on a message, you know, we were going to get a bit of gear, because the depression kicked in and the reality of where we were and everything. I had no money, my brother had no money. Jody, lucky enough, had his credit card still with him, so he was able to go and get some money out of the bank machine. That was the plan. We're in Jody's car, we're excited about the prospect of getting gear in Athlone. My brother knew an estate in Athlone where he heard there was gear. He knew of an estate, I should say. We're on the highway, we're about 8 kilometres outside Athlone. We're stopped at the lights. The lights go green, we're ready to roll, and boom, the car cuts out. Now it's raining, mind you, and it's dark. And we're right in the middle of the highway on the autobahn, on the motorway, and the car won't move. So we get out, we try to push it, it won't take over. So we had to push the car into the hard shoulder, ring car help. So we sat in the car for about 40 minutes. And we eventually got a garage, and a guy came out, some 24-hour guy, and he put the car up on the ramp and took it off, and we rang a taxi. But we waited another 25 minutes in the piss and the rain on the hard shoulder to get a taxi. The guy wouldn't take, he said he could take only 1 or 2 maximum in his cab. And there's 3 of us. So we had to get a taxi. But instead of going back to the treatment centre, it was forward with the mission and on into Athlone, onto this estate. I don't remember the name of it, but I can tell you it was just your typical council estate in the Midlands. And it seemed to go on for ages, and it was depressing and windy and eerie, and you know, it was late at night, it was cold out. Maybe about 10 o'clock we got into this estate after been waiting for ages for a taxi on the garage guy, and we wandered around. There was nobody on the streets, we didn't know where to go, but we wandered around for maybe 40 minutes, and we were about getting ready to look for a way to get back down onto the main street to get a taxi back to the treatment centre when we saw a guy at the end of the street, and just we could tell from the gait of him. There we go. We did see a couple of people the odd time, but they didn't look approachable. But we see him going, just the way he was walking, and we could tell that this. So my brother went over, and he was chatting across the road for ages to this guy, and then he comes across with the guy, and the guy said he could get something, and which he did, you know, after a lot of negotiating about giving the money first, or no, go and get the gear first, and no, it's not his gear, but he give us his wallet to hold, all this nonsense. Jody ended up going with him and telling him in non-certain terms, if he ripped us, he'd be back down with a whole load of blokes. He didn't rip us. He got the heroin. So we're there, it must have been like 11:30, again we left that estate, and the phone had been hopping. Every time Dave rang to see where we were from the treatment centre, Jody just kept turning the phone off, declining the calls, because we were on a mission, and the only thing we could see ahead of us, we were all tunnel visions, was that we get sorted before we got back. We got the gear, and then we had to walk down into Athlone. That took another half an hour, and then we eventually, before we got a taxi, because we couldn't wait till we got back to the house, and we also knew they'd be suspicious of us if we went back. We wouldn't get an opportunity to have a smoke as easy. So we found a garage, a parking garage, a pay-in parking garage, which we were able to access and go down into the basement and find a corner where we had a smoke. Low quality, poor heroin. Nobody actually even felt much. It was more psychological that we'd had something. Nobody was stoned, and Jody was really pissed off because he was like €400 or €500 in the hole now with the car being picked up and had to be repaired, and then what he spent on the taxi, and then the gear, and then the taxi back, because we were 25 kilometres outside Athlone, something like that. So we got back to the pig farm anyway, just after midnight. Of course, Davey was crawling the walls wondering what had happened to us, if we'd been in an accident, or it even crossed his mind if we might have gone using. But when we explained to him what happened with the car, and he saw that the car wasn't there and we'd arrived in the taxi, everything was cool. We went into the house, we were really discontent, and poor old John had been excited about us coming back down with something, and of course we hadn't got anything. What we did get was very weak, and so that put everyone in a piss off mood, and we went to bed. Got up the next day, Sunday. The same type of misery was in the gaff, and there was nothing to eat. We never brought back burgers the night before. So just out of pure hunger, we put the big ham in a pot, boiled the whole thing up for 3 or 4 hours, then cut these big doorstep slabs off it and fried them. And then just gave out a piece of bread with these big slab of ham and a few mashed potatoes, and that's what was our breakfast brunch on the Sunday. I probably threw mine up about 2 hours later because I was starting to get really sick. Yeah, it was a miserable day. I sat mostly at the back porch that day just smoking roll-ups and thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? And straight away all I was thinking about is tomorrow when Nick comes, I think I'll ask him to bring me to the station. I was thinking, having this private conversation about getting out of there, even though I'd paid a week up front, and as everyone did, but I didn't realise Jody and Danny were thinking the same thing. So the long and the short of it was, we stayed another couple of days, just out of exhaustion and misery. And then I think it was Monday evening we snapped, and Monday evening or Tuesday morning. It was Tuesday morning actually. Tuesday morning we just got up, and I told Mick, I can't do this, Mick, I gotta go back to Dublin, and Jody and Danny were the same, and Nick was, oh lads, you gotta give it a chance. But in fairness, like, it was terrible because it wasn't warm enough to go. Like on this Sunday, I should mention as well, we were freezing. This come Sunday evening, so all the loose bits of timber and scraps of wood that had been around this property had been burned in the fire. So I went out the back, and there's my brother smashing up one of these, probably the nicest thing that I got, with the 2 kitchen chairs, these mahogany old kind of style kitchen chairs, like really nice dark red timber. But my brother had smashed it up, and we were burning that was burning in the fire. When I came in from having a walk, I was looking for the chair to sit on in the kitchen, and I couldn't find it. There was only one chair there, and that Jody was using. I went in, there's my brother feeding the last of the chairs in the stove. So that's the kind of madness that was down in this place. I should also mention, because it's only coming back to me as I'm telling the story now, another friend of ours, another lad, Davey, could only stay the 2 days, and Nick needed more help. He needed somebody that was more familiar with the drugs than he was, and it was all right. We felt safe when Davey was there, but when Davey had to go home during the week, he needed another lad. So Davey sent down Fergal, and Fergal was a fella that helped a lot of people when he was in NA. But Fergal had problems, and he was relapsing now and again, and I'm not sure if the lads were aware, but anyway, Davey got him the gig to come down and work down in Nick's treatment centre, looking after us, because Fergal arrived on Monday, and Davey left, and Fergal came in, and he was all enthusiastic. But the first thing he did is came up to see us, because he knew, he'd heard I was there, he'd heard Jody was there, and he knew both of us. And he came down, and the first thing he did when he came into my room, he was supposed to be mindless, he says, "Do you have any tablets?" I thought I was thinking, oh, for fuck's sake. I says, "No, bro, no." We came down, we were trying to give it a go. He said, "We got you in a sleeper." And I said, "For you, is it?" And he goes, yeah. Oh, he'd been dabbling. So he was also, we had no chance of getting clean in this fucking place. So anyway, 2 days later, we split, we all left, and Nick was very sad. He was ringing me up constantly when I got back to Dublin, asked me to come back down and bring more fellas with me, I don't think the treatment centre ever got off the ground, and I heard another couple of fellas, he took another few fellas after us, and it ended similar. But he was a good lad, he was a good man, Nick. I just, you couldn't make this place up. I don't think he got his treatment centre off the ground in the end. I heard there was another group there after us. I heard they legged it too after a few days. So, and after that, I didn't hear any more about this bizarre place. And unfortunately, that chap Dave that works with us down there, and Fergal, both of those guys have passed in the last couple of years. And they were good lads. They just fought with addiction, and when they would get clean, they'd be doing everything they could to try and help people that were still using. So, in memory of those guys, and in memory of the pig farm in the dip down in the middle of Ireland. This is Paul Tracy. This is the Heroin Chronicles.